Welcome to the second bonus episode of Making an Impact. I'm Wes Thurley, leader for commercial real estate segment at Schneider Electric. In the first part of these bonus episodes, we explored the fact that approximately 40% of greenhouse gas emissions come from commercial real estate buildings. And out of that, 30% can be apportioned to the new construction market and new buildings. In this extra episode, we're going to talk about the adoption of technology in the very traditional construction market. With our guest today, we'll be looking at whether the use of artificial intelligence can make a net positive impact on reducing carbon emissions in the construction phase, possibly contribute positively towards the world climate crisis. AI is being utilised in so many different industries across the world, and even in our homes, AI has become normalised with devices such as Alexa. So we're going to investigate if the construction market is an exception or an early adopter. We'll delve into how the use of AI could potentially speed up construction methods, make us more efficient as a workforce, possibly be more sustainable. In this episode, we're making an impact with Sarah Calder, AI Capability Manager at Skanska Group. Welcome, Sarah, to Making an Impact.
Thank you very much, Wes.
So your role is heavily IT related now, I would imagine you would say, being in with a title like AI Capability Manager. But your background isn't quite IT, is it? Tell us a bit more about that and how you ended up.
It's very, very far from IT. So I'm a civil engineer by background. I went to university, studied civil engineering, started my career working on Crossrail in London, the New Elizabeth line, did a stint up in Cambridge, then did a bit in the design office. After that, then worked on HS2, which is the largest infrastructure project in Europe. Went up to Birmingham, and I've spent pretty much my entire career out on site with construction teams building what the designers have designed. So yeah, I've started from smashing in pegs, and I'm now Skanska HQ's AI Capability Manager. So I sit within the IT function, and it's very much about how we can bring it back to reality, not just something which is far-reaching and people talk about but don't actually do. How can we get business value from it? Hence, they've brought a bit of a business person in, knows how the projects run, know how the front office works, to try and get some more out of it.
And how are you enjoying not having to put a hard hat on and a high vis and those very cool boots that you get to wear?
I do, yeah, steel toe cap boots. I don't miss them. Although I'm based in Stockholm at the moment, so where Skanska's HQ is, and the winter boots there, they're practically steel toe cap boots.
Quite similar.
Am I missing the yellows? Probably not. But it's a totally different way of working, and I think having that project perspective when you're working in head office is really interesting, and it's nice to bring that insight into what we're doing.
Definitely. No, I mean, I've worked on a few construction sites myself over the years, and I wouldn't say the words artificial intelligence would spring to mind when I reflect on those times. All good fun, obviously. But how do you think then AI tools is going to impact some of those long-standing traditional methods that take place in the new construction market?
Yeah, I think certainly the public perception of construction is that it's dirty work, it's muddy boots, it's people just getting on and building stuff. It's quite often late, over budget, and doesn't deliver what it should deliver. So bringing AI into that market, I think the first step with anything AI related is always to do with the data. So every project you work on, a project manager who you speak to will say their job is totally unique and they do things totally autonomously. And every project from one side of the street to the other will be done totally differently. So in terms of getting that structured data to be able to start using AI and start actually benefiting from this technology, there's been a massive boom. So we've had the convergence of data, of the computing power, everything to do with it means that now is the moment that AI is becoming part of our everyday life. And construction and the sites and the projects really need to be picking up on that. But the first step is data. Second step, I'd say, is competence. So you don't have to be a wizard to use certain tools, but having the confidence and having the trust in what this tool is giving you, because AI is a tool. There's a reason that Microsoft call it your co-pilot.
Interesting.
So Skanska have developed their own tool called Sidekick, an AI tool. And again, it's Sidekick. It's the person who goes with you and supports you on that journey. So I think if we talk about data, if we talk about capability, and then the final kind of piece of the puzzle in AI in construction is about the use cases. Really making sure that what you're developing and what you're doing is going to add value. It's not just a shiny sticker. It's actually going to improve things.
Amazing. And the thing that really jumps out there is the word data.
Mm.
And when I, again, reflect back on some of those early stages of a new building, for example, the volume of data, information, drawings, descriptions of operations, specifications, it's quite overwhelming, isn't it? And for you being in the position that you are at Skanska Group, where you're responsible for all the different trades, all the different specialists, and ultimately the end user, you have that responsibility to build this new construction.
Mm.
AI can play a role maybe in that, would you say?
Massively. So I remember first project I worked on, and we were doing our handover to the client, and it was all on paper forms. Everything was on paper, which then gets scanned in. That's your health and safety file. That's what you hand over. That becomes part of your operation and maintenance. And where does those stacks of paper go? Is it put on a bookshelf?
Mm.
Is it saved on a PDF? How easy is that to search through? And actually, if you're getting the data right in the first place, putting it in the right forms, putting it in the right stacks, the right platforms, you can then use AI to interrogate it, asking questions. What do I do when the light bulb turns off?
And that's leads me into the other point that came to mind was competency.
Mm.
Is it actually acceptable to think that someone could take an AI tool to be their co-pilot
Mm.
and to consume all that data and still do their job and maybe even be more efficient at their job?
There's a well-known phrase within AI, which I heard about a year ago, which was that AI isn't going to replace you, but somebody using AI will. And I think there is a bit of a fear around that you've got some fantastically skilled workforce. And is this technology, which you can't see, you can't really understand it, but is it going to replace you? No, it's really going to add value. I heard a fantastic story the other day about the Met Office, and they've got to check their weather stations, check that a light keeps working. And so once every 6 months, they have to send somebody out to the Orkney Islands to go and check that the light is still working. And that's travel. And that's not just time, that's carbon, expenses, everything related to go and check that a light isn't working. And actually, with a bit of technology, with the data, the competency to be able to have AI saying, I need to now check that light, or that light is now off. And it might be that it only needs to be checked once every 9 months, rather than sending somebody out once every 6th. So I think there can be a lot of small efficiencies gained, where instead of having to do that 2-hour trip to the Orkney Islands.
Absolutely. And that's just one
Mm.
small example, isn't it? Imagine it on a mass
Yeah.
scale, and you've got buildings being built all over the world,
Exactly.
you know, the efficiencies you could gain. And let's stick with competency then, just and skills for a second. Obviously, a massive organisation like Skanska Group,
Mm.
no doubt you have net zero targets to meet,
Mm-hmm.
and you want ultimately to reach net zero construction.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, the equipment that's being put into buildings designs now isn't necessarily what you would always have come up against, and we're already facing a skills shortage.
Mm-hmm.
We certainly are in the UK, which isn't a problem that's going away too quickly. But when you start to add in new renewable type technologies to be more sustainable, like air source heat pumps, solar, for example, there's a skills gap shortage or a green skills shortage. Do you think that technology like artificial intelligence could help in that way?
Massively. So Skanska is a global company. We work in the US, UK, Central Europe, and a lot of the Nordics. There are 27,000 people within Skanska globally. To be able to get the knowledge that somebody in the far outreaches of Finland or the far outreaches of the US from the UK, to get their knowledge, it's quite hard to do. Knowledge doesn't necessarily cross borders. But if you've got this AI platform, so like the Skanska Sidekick, where it's linked to our intranet, it's linked to all of the individual domains that people have got, that the business units have, that knowledge is able to be shared, where some amazingly innovative stuff, which people in Finland are doing, the team over in the US, okay, have we done anything to do with solar farms? And Finland may have done it. It's unlikely, because Finland is quite dark. But there is a real potential that that knowledge is able to be shared using AI and using that generative AI, that machine learning of what information is already out there.
It's an amazing thought, isn't it? That we're not already learning from each other as much as we could do. There's communities, I think, for thousands of years have grown that way. But you're right. So collaboration, but best practice, sharing best practice between different countries, different projects could become the easiest thing in the world, but via AI.
Yeah, totally. And let's be honest, knowledge is best shared through people. But how do you start connecting those people? People will upload stuff to the intranet and talk about the amazing stuff they do. So when I was first joined in my role, the first thing I did was using our own tool. What has Skanska done with AI? And all of a sudden, I had a massive catalogue of things which were done. And previously, I only got the UK domain, so I only saw a nugget of what Skanska were doing just in the UK. But again, using AI, we're able to get a real outreach and get the information from everywhere and really share that knowledge.
Again, a little bit back onto what you said at the start on the perception of the construction market, and maybe it isn't fair in some ways, because clearly you at Skanska are already adopting new ways, new methods, AI, for example. What do you think is, if anything, is maybe holding other parts of the construction market back from going, really embracing things like AI? Is it because maybe they don't want technology or machines telling them what to do? Or is it because they're worried that the robots are going to take over? Or is it something cultural? Is it a culture thing that's holding back?
I think the whole digital transformation piece, when you compare where productivity has gone in major industries, construction has been on a steady decline. Examples like mining and fishing and agriculture, their productivity has increased. So why is construction different? That's the question we've really got to try and answer. And I think a lot of that, going back to those kind of 3 points earlier, is about the data, is about that everywhere you set up is totally unique. It's different ground conditions, different drawings. Nobody wants to build the same high-rise building from down the street to up the street.
You want to differentiate.
You
right?
want to differentiate. So everything is unique, and therefore gathering that data and being able to learn and adopt the technology is quite difficult. I also think you've got, like you were saying about the skills shortage, you've got some fantastically skilled labour, and they do what they do and they're skilled at it. And sometimes the easiest thing to do when you're under pressure for a deadline, under pressure with cost, is just to let them get on and do it. And do they really want to be adding more workload to them? Potentially not. But I think you've got certainly a real potential there.
Yeah, so I see what you're saying. It's kind of like if all of a sudden, these people are busy with deadlines and they've got a project manager on their back and they need,
Mm,
and then we're saying, oh, by the way, learn how to use artificial intelligence as well while you're at it.
mhm,
But I guess it would be that idea that if you just spend a little bit of time to learn it, it
mm.
actually would probably make them more efficient in
Oh,
the long term.
definitely. And I think that if we go back to those use cases,
Mm,
some of them we will never get the use case for,
yeah.
and we'll leave that be. But in 2012, there was a study where I think it was 20% of people spend their time looking for information. If you're working 5 days a week, that's 1 day per week that
Mm,
you're using searching for information. And that's a really nice use case where actually the human is then able to add value. You've got AI doing that manual work, and the human, with their superior intelligence,
yep.
is able to add the value to that chain. And who doesn't want their life to be easier? To
So,
do those mundane tasks, to do that automation.
so AI is doing all the heavy lifting,
Oh, exactly.
leaving us humans to do the nicer tasks, and
Yeah.
like you say, add the value, the more sophisticated part. So it's a nice way of putting it, I think. And if anyone's listening to that is reluctant, then maybe that's a nice way to view it. Let's kind of change direction slightly. But we all know construction is in some ways a dangerous place, and we have to be super careful. And I know again from the sites I've worked on that health and safety stats ultimately the most important part, and we want to send everybody home safe and
Mhm.
well. I just wonder, is AI technology got a role to play in this part of the industry?
Like AI has got a part to play in every part of the industry, but with health and safety, lots of it is about humans' perception and humans' comfort around the big machines. And when I'm talking big machines, I'm talking piling rigs, excavators, those kind of things where you don't get the full line of sight. It's moving around and you can't see it all. So one of the things Skanska UK has done is they've actually mandated that all of their piling equipment will have this AI capability where if the machine is slewing round, and if you don't know what's slewing, it's basically turning in
Yep,
machine terms. And if somebody is within that red zone, the zone which they could get hit, it's
yep.
an exclusion zone, nobody should be in there. But if somebody is in there, the cameras will detect that person and they will stop the machine.
Wow.
That's sending somebody home.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, we want everybody to go home safe every single day.
Near miss type culture, making sure that you're reporting these things. I guess
Mm,
with technology, these things would be highlighted and reported autonomously.
yeah. And I think the other part of it is all the telemetry that goes on behind it. So it's not just the safety side of things, but it can be the productivity side of things as well. You get the amount of data you get from it and the amount that you can interrogate is really quite significant. And you can see we had a example on my previous project where we had fatigue cameras within the dumpers, big trucks with wagons on the back. And they were able to detect microsleeps. So a camera was there,
Mm,
and as the dumper was driving, if it was microsleeps, they were starting to fall asleep or not quite paying full attention, this little thing would beep in the corner. There's some real power there, and it's not just
incredible.
about the people around them, it's about the driver themselves.
It's amazing. And you think in the built environment, we often talk a lot about smart buildings and the addition
Mm,
of IoT sensors, and we don't often talk about the smart element of construction. And that feels like, without a doubt, a key component of what you might call a smart construction site is fatigue sensors on workers
mm,
to highlight tell them before they even realize, because
mm,
that would be impossible to detect
exactly.
without technology, surely.
Yeah, and you at the starter shift briefings before you set everybody off to work, you always say, "How's everyone feeling?" Everyone's like, "Yeah, yeah, good," because they get paid when they turn up. If they say, "Actually, you know what? I'm not fit to work," then they won't get paid. So actually, having the technology in there so that we can make those assessments there and then, we'll get an alert pop up on our phone saying we've detected microsleeps, for example, and all of a sudden we're then speaking to that person. Oh yeah, worked a bit longer over the weekend, or I've got a newborn child and they didn't sleep last night.
Yeah,
But the culture behind it is, and certainly in the UK, is if you turn up at work, you'll be paid.
for
And if you
sure.
don't turn up, you won't be. And you're therefore putting other people at risk if you're not fit to do so.
That's a really nice example of how artificial intelligence and just being more smart in our approach to construction can really have a
Mm,
human factor, a human impact on people's well-being,
mm,
and so that's a great example. So moving on to maybe around the design, because you do this too. You know you're building some of the most iconic structures in the world in some
mhm,
countries, I'm sure.
mm.
But these designs are typically done by humans, right? These are the creative thinking of the human brain. Do we think the machines can compete with us when it comes to the design?
So I'm not a born designer. I'm born contracting, not a consultant, but I did do a stint in a design office. And I think certainly the creativity aspect of the design, what would appeal if you're able to really make something bespoke, really make something unique, describe that area. Can you create an image of this, a bridge to go from A to B, a building which looks like this is the community around it. You're going to get some inspiration from it. It may not be exactly what you're
Mhm.
going to go for. You may get some inspiration. So I think for the creativity, potentially, I certainly think for the physical design work, there could be some use of AI. When you think about design, you have different standards, basically. You have AASHTO in America, you've got British standards, you've got Eurocode, and they are hundreds and hundreds of pages of codes which you need to go through and do the calculations with. Even finding the right bit of that
Mhm.
British standard, of that Eurocode, which you're then meant to apply, is quite hard to do.
Yeah, yeah.
So being able to find that and seek that information in a quicker way, and then also the automation of it. So being able to run the analysis quicker with that right data and really get some efficiencies from it. But yeah, I can't claim that design is my expertise.
But it feels like you're leaning towards the idea that artificial intelligence or a machine could have a good go at designing a building from scratch, because like standard you could feed
Hmm.
images even of other buildings we could feed into a machine learning model,
Mm,
the design aspirations from the end user, all these information, the land space,
mm,
the floor, it's possible, isn't it?
mm. And it is, and I think you've got the thing with AI is that there is this general fear about it. It's gonna take my
Mm,
job. It's not, but I think the more that people use it and the more that
mm,
people trial it and just see what it can do,
yeah.
I think that's where the benefit's going to come from it. Because if you've got somebody who's repeating the same design, repeating the same calculations, why has a human got to do it?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, again, just reflecting slightly on some of the challenges that I would have witnessed would have been space in London,
Mm,
especially with the basement and trying to fit large amounts of switchgear in that space, as well as not wasting precious rentable space up on the
mm,
floors. How do we fit the equipment in? I guess a machine learning model could work this out pretty
mm.
quick.
Yeah, yeah, certainly AI. If you put the right parameters in
Mm,
and give it the right information, like I said, it's never going to be perfect. The human's always got to be in the
yeah.
loop, but you've got a different way of thinking. If you go to university, you get taught a certain thing, you join
Mm,
the same company, and
yeah.
you're going to have a certain amount of bias towards it. And AI within design may not have that bias.
And standards, yeah, and that's a really, I guess, an emotional thing, isn't it? A very human thing, bias,
Mm,
and we all have to be wary of that
mm,
in all parts of our life. But yeah, I can see what you're saying. And then with the emergence of more and more compliance
mm,
in different countries varies.
mm,
You mentioned the British standards, but obviously there's energy sustainability standards now that and landlords, certainly in the commercial real estate world, aspiring towards things like BREEAM. lead, neighbours, wide score, all of these different measurements, and certainly technology, you would think, would have an advantage to tell us how to achieve.
Yeah, and even if it's simple things like, well, if you're uploading a document from the client and it's 700 pages long and you're looking for just one specific item, how much time is it going to take you to read that 700-page document? You'll probably Control F and try and find the right keywords in there, but you've got AI which is able to do that for you. It's got the data, it's able to interpret it. And I think that's where you can really start to see value throughout the entire chain. So you've got the purchasing of the land, you've got the design, you've got the construction, you've got the operation and maintenance. There's so much along that chain. And going back to that point at the start about 40%, like there's a lot of efficiencies which can be gained all the way through that value chain to be able to have a building like we're sitting in now.
So another thing that springs to mind about what might be holding it back, certainly big word in construction, cost. Small word, actually.
4 letters, that word.
Small word, but it means something bigger. Is that holding technology back in any way, do you think? Or is that a myth?
I think cost in a huge amount of industries is the massive word. Like, what value is it going to bring? If I'm going to spend this money, is it going to save me more? Ideally, yes. And I think certainly with AI, being able to quantify the value that it's going to bring, value the amount of time that, so say that 1 day a week you're doing that research, to be able to value that time and say that's how much it's going to save us if we use this technology. From this point onwards, we're going to save 52 days. That's quantifiable. How you're actually going to get the value from it and therefore reduce the cost. Because as an industry, we're expected to deliver better, deliver more for less, and bringing in these new technologies, what you don't want it to be is that distraction where it's not value adding. And I think that's where, when we think about use cases, is so important. If we're spending time and money investing, we need to make sure that it's going to have the value at the end.
It's all about the value, right? And especially when it's so competitive.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, because it really is. And I've seen that firsthand. The demands on you as a business now, probably more than ever from a sustainability perspective, to be more sustainable, build greener buildings, etc. So even if the most marginal of gains can be achieved using something like AI, like you say, it's quantifiable, right?
Yeah, there's a really nice example. So Skanska's net zero is 2045, and we're progressing well on that journey. It's now, what are the marginal things that are really going to start adding up and start making that difference? And some of our team in Central Europe developed their own machine learning tool. So they had 30 years of structured data, fantastic data about different concrete mixes. And what they were able to do was create a platform which is able to, if I use this much 2040 and this much cement and this much water, what strength am I going to have in that concrete? And then you start bringing in, okay, well, what about some more sustainable materials? What about GGBS? What about pulverized fly ash? What about these specific things? How does that change it? And by having this machine learning tool, it's been able to produce fantastic results, and we're able to produce amazing concrete, which is green, sustainable. And I think having that kind of data and knowledge, like Skanska's, I'm going to get told off for this at one point, I think over 125 years old, maybe it's 130, somewhere around there, but a huge amount of knowledge and data and information. And it's about getting it together and saying, okay, where's it going to add the value now? Where's it really going to go?
Definitely don't worry about getting told off.
Yeah,
A good boss once said to me, if you've not got in trouble today, you're not doing your job properly. And I'm sure you didn't say anything wrong there. It sounds quite compelling, actually. And like you say, it's about comparing like 30 years of experience,
Mm,
and that rich experience shouldn't be lost, should it? Just
mm,
because of the emergence of new technology. It's the convergence of the two. You're
exactly.
taking all that experience, adding
Mm,
new tech, AI,
mm-hmm,
and the result is the value
mm-hmm,
that you're benefiting from, and your customers
exactly.
are benefiting from. So, and the planet,
Mm-hmm,
if it's more sustainable, back to our original point,
mm,
which is not an easy task. So, sounds like a no-brainer
yeah.
to me. So, Sarah, let's fast forward 3 years, give
Okay.
or take.
All right.
You've had a great career so far,
Mm-hmm.
varied, and now you're embarking really quite at the beginning, I'd say, of
Mm.
this journey in the world of artificial intelligence. And you're 3 years down the line, you look back. What kind of impact do you want to be able to say that you've had? What do you want your legacy to be?
I think so. I'm only 2 months into this role, and I'm not sure at this point in time whether I will go back into construction and go back onto site or if I'll stay within technology. But I think in either way, the impact which I'd like to have is that the sites, the people on that front office, the people at the real hard face are benefiting from this technology. Whether that's because it's safer, whether that because the quality's better, they can spend less time on site. All of these kind of things, to real me leaving a legacy is having that information and making their lives better within that construction field.
Sounds like a good legacy to me.
Mm,
And so, if I summarize just on a few things that I think we've talked about, and it's been fascinating, by the way, and I've learned a lot actually about the construction market. You believe that there is genuine value to be gained from artificial intelligence and other technologies, new technologies, in not only building better buildings, but making our people safer,
mm,
making sure they get home safely, um, from technologies such as the fatigue sensors, which is an unbelievable advancement actually. But it makes sense with the emergence of more smart IoT sensors. Why wouldn't they be in
mm,
construction? But that also leads to another point you've made. It's all about the volume of data that you have to consume as a workforce. Having done it yourself on site, you have first-hand experience. You've highlighted that actually the machines could do it quicker and easier, allowing us to free up our energy, so to speak, to spend our time as humans on the more sophisticated tasks, or the really where we can add more value.
mm.
And overall, I don't think cost is a blocker. It's potentially it's about explaining the value to people, probably a site by site basis, and I'm sure you've got the challenge under control.
It is. It's giving people the why.
Nice.
Why am I asking you to do this?
Mm,
What value is it going to bring you? And if you keep asking why, keep giving the why, then you'll start to get some real traction behind it.
amazing. And so I will just have one last thing to say, which is a massive thank you, Sarah, for joining us and really making an impact in this topic that we've been exploring, which is the artificial intelligence in the construction industry, but and the impact it can make on commercial real estate. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us, add to close off?
I don't think so. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a really enjoyable chat.
Meet Zygo Activate, your carbon reduction solution. From tracking to emission reduction, Zygo Activate provides valuable insights and connects you with a network of energy solution providers to turn your ambitions into action. Wherever you are on your decarbonisation journey, our easy-to-use software gives you the customised roadmap and connections you need to reach your sustainability targets. Search Zygo Activate and request your free demo today.